How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Adobe Live. I'm excited to be here with you with Paddy Mack. I'm Amber Torrealba, and we're both professional skimboarders and filmmakers. We're going to be going through some fun little edits, and we're going to open up a project and kind of walk you through our workflow, let you know kind of what we do on going to a trip, what we do going through different obstacles, and kind of like how we overcome, just creating a project together and seeing how we can put it together. Sometimes we work, on projects on our own separately. Sometimes we work on projects tag teaming, basically like he'll start a project for me. I'll kind of do the final edits on the end. And then sometimes we're kind of working through it together. So in this case, we're actually going to work through a project together with you, a project that we actually did with a mixture between Laguna Beach, where we're coming live from. So if anybody out there is, across the world, and we're kind of stoked to just be, out here in Laguna Beach trying to create the most content that we can with the weather that we have. We're kind of fortunate to have, some people I know out there are probably in freezing cold weather. And some days we have warmer days. Some days we're kind of, cold out there in the mornings and at nights. But it's been fun to continue to create content. And we just got back from a trip from Mexico. So we're going to break that down for you. Keep in mind to stick around afterwards. We're going to have the creative encore and XD challenges and different little fun things, even through this particular live stream. We're going to have a challenge submission after about 90 minutes. So stick around for that. And there's going to be some artist highlights as well coming around tomorrow as well, because we're going to be editing this video with you here today and tomorrow. And so you're going to kind of get a breakdown of how we go through everything. So a little bit about how we actually create content together. I'll show you an example of some things that we've created over the years. And I'll also let Paddy kind of introduce himself and let you know what he's all about.
And yeah, like she said, we've been working together for a few years now. I'm Paddy Mack. I'm a videographer, drone pilot, and also a professional skimboarder as well. And it's been super fun to go on trips like this with Amber and capture amazing content. And today what we're going to kind of do is show you what this workflow looks like, kind of talk to you a little bit about goes on, getting these kinds of shots and what's in our mind for when we get back to Premiere Pro. And we start piecing everything together, and we're going to show you how to make your life a little bit easier, how to make things move a little bit better in Premiere Pro and put something cool together.
Yeah, for sure. Like you can see some of what we're showing here is just an example of like the things that we kind of work with. And, we're always in these elements of, is it going to be, good weather, bad weather? Are we going to get the lighting that we want? It's kind of just one of those. Every day we go in and we're just like, all right, well, we have this plan in mind, but are we really going to be able to execute that because of what we have to face? So you're going to see different clips that maybe we got, in the wrong way that we intended to get it. Sometimes you're out there and you only got one chance, one moment, and you get what you get, and you come home and you're like, well, I just went on this trip. I, maybe spent, all this time and I didn't get exactly what I needed. And so this particular edit that we're going to kind of walk you through as well is going to basically show you what we would do in a situation where maybe we came home from a trip, for instance, like Mexico, and we were not able to capture everything that we had. So we're piecing an edit together with clips that we actually kind of intro here in Laguna Beach. So this is just an example of Paddy and I, traveling and competing around the world and as professional skimboarders, and how this has kind of influenced our filmmaking career as well. Seeing all these different things and experiencing everything. It's kind of how I started my career as a filmmaker, You know, 5 to 7 years ago, I started with an iPhone and a GoPro, and I was just out there capturing things like this, just my everyday experiences. And it's allowed me to kind of come back to the editing room and be able to look at what I have and not only progress on a board and progress in different ways like that, but also progress in filmmaking, because it gives me that different perspective of what, we're looking at, being an athlete and being on behind the camera. We both can kind of work with each other and challenge each other to progress in different ways. So the videos that you've been watching here are, basically just different videos we've created over the last few years, but also a progression of those videos. This is one of the more recent videos that we created with Panasonic, and we were able to really take it to another level with waking up, trying to fight that light. We'll talk about that as we're going through and editing. And, you only have that one maybe hour of golden light, or, the light that you wanted to work with. And sometimes you get caught up in, the gear, or how you thought that the edit was going to be. And sometimes I'm kind of like, if I'm director and Paddy's, DP on video that we're making, I'm kind of like, all right, scratch that, move on from that. Let's get this clip. Let's work with what we have, and let's kind of just see how we can make this come to life. Because ultimately, you have this idea and you really just want to try to make it come to life. And there's so many ways that you can tell a story, not only visually, but we'll show you ways in Premiere Pro as well to add captions and, maybe add voiceovers or things to really make your video have more dynamic and really have your audience understand where you're coming from and the feeling of that video. So this is just another example of that. Paddy having to be behind the camera, many hours, many shots, many retakes sometimes.
And like she said, this video that we shot for Panasonic, it was a little bit more of a planned shoot. We knew what kind of shots we kind of had to hit. And ironically enough, the video was about creating with light. And like she said, finding that good light, that golden hour in the beginning or the end of the day. That's what we're really fighting. We weren't really, we're fighting those kinds of elements. And, especially here in California, weather can be good and weather can be bad. So that's always something that we have to work with and bring together in post when we have to.
Exactly. And so, yeah, it's great. This is the fun part here, hopping right into the project and getting started on the edit, seeing what we actually got a chance to come back with and really just making it come to life. So as you can see here, we've already got, for time's sake, we've got our Premiere Pro pulled up, and we have some folders already kind of labeled for you the way that we would do them as well. As you can see here, this is the way that our workspace is set up. You can actually customize your workspace to any way that you would like to kind of see it. This is just a preference of ours, because I like to be able to see the source clip. Paddy may be using his particular workspace in a different way on his computer, or depending on when we're working together, you have those team projects or you have those individual projects. So you can keep that in mind when, creating your workspace. This area here will show all of the clips that we're going to be actually looking at and scrubbing between, and then we'll be able to see what's on our timeline here once we get that started. So if we hop right into this edit here, we can see our different bins of folders that we've created actually for kind of organizing and preparing. I've set aside a few sound effects that I might be able to use and that I've pre-downloaded. There's different areas that you can get, free sound effects, possibly like freesound.org and different places like that, unless you've purchased or partnered with someone. Even Adobe offers some cool sounds and things like that as well. So we have overlays that we'd be able to put onto the video. But if we hop right into the video folders itself, Paddy knows from all of the work that we're kind of putting in throughout the day, we have to come home and spend those hours transferring those cameras and everything. So let's say we go out for a session and you don't really realize how many cameras you've used until you come home. So you've kind of already put the drone up and you got some clips there. You've use one camera, you've used your iPhone, maybe you've pulled out the GoPro at one point, and then by the time you've realized it, you have 5 cameras that you're transferring. And so it's important to stay organized. We put our different folders by camera, by day, and as you can see, even by sequence or like scenes that we're actually going through. So we have a folder for FPV when Paddy's been piloting FPV drones, and he's been having a lot of fun with that.
So fun.
Yeah, we'll show you some funny some funny clips of that, like what happens when things go good, when things go bad. We actually have, if you stick around, we have a crash video to kind of show you as well, and that's been pretty fun to kind of go through. So we have also a Mexico skim folder, which kind of has the difference between, you know, working with a mirrorless or a DSLR camera, the clips that we capture there, and then the clips that we capture by GoPro. This really allows you to, when you're working through your timeline, to be able to kind of see what you want to put next to each other when you're putting it on the timeline. We don't always like have a particular sequence of, all right, let's drop this onto the timeline from this camera or that camera. Because we know it going into it. Sometimes you get back and we just have all this footage and we're like, all right, well, we need to create a video out of this, or a vlog per se. Sometimes you just go out and you want to create a YouTube video. So for this instance, we're going to be creating, and the sequence we're setting up is going to be particularly for YouTube, because as Paddy knows, we sometimes have to put it out there in different formats. We have our YouTube version, which is going to be your wide 16:9, but then we also have, you know, breaking it down into square, or breaking it down into 4:5 for Instagram or Reels and TikTok, all these new social medias that it's important to kind of share your progress there and actually show a different version or a teaser of your video there. So if we kind of just dive right into picking some of these clips, I'll pick a couple here, and then I'll also have Paddy kind of choose his perspective and show you how we kind of work as a team to put these clips on the timeline, make sure that we have all the moments that we may have wanted to put on to this timeline from the trip. And it's always good sometimes to get a second eye of what should we keep, what should we not keep, because as we both know, you come home sometimes and you have so much to work with, it's overwhelming, right? Like you don't want to almost like put it out there because you don't even know where to start. And I always say, like, it's most important to just get started and just start diving in. Being organized helps you kind of save that time. So if you can just start diving in, putting things on the timeline will make you feel a lot better to kind of just like get started and seeing what you can work with. So I'm just going to go ahead and open one of these clips here and just see what we have to work with here in Laguna Beach. And somehow maybe we can find that transition into Mexico, because if we have all these clips from Mexico and I feel like, you know, maybe we didn't capture enough, and I don't really know where to start with it. Like we were out there and we were having a good time, and, you know, you come back, you're like, oh shoot, like I completely forgot to film an intro. Like, I don't even know if we did, or maybe I want to save that intro for another project, right? I want to tell a story somewhere else. So that's another option too, is we're going to tell this story for YouTube in a different way than maybe we can use some other footage that we have for something else. Mm-hmm. So we'll go here, and if we scrub through this footage, I have a clip of me kind of like standing at the beach here and taking a look at Paddy as he walks off. So we'll create this, let's go with like an endpoint here. If you cruise over here, I kind of jump down, and we'll create an out point when I jump down. So if we actually play this clip and take a look at it, let's see what we have to work with. So Paddy walks off, and then I kind of jump down from that rock. So I have an idea here going into it. And the biggest thing is and we talk about a lot, is we shoot to edit. You may not know exactly what you want to edit, but it's important to try to shoot to edit. So if you want to go ahead and let's drop this timeline into here. We have our timeline in there. And basically what we want to do, this is a 4K timeline. So it's actually a 1080 timeline, basically, for what we're working with. Let's drop it into set to frame. Okay, and
yep. And I mean, what she said, it's creating and getting started somewhere. And I think we may have created a 4K timeline by accident, but that's okay, because what you want to do, it's okay. What we want to do is we want to create a new item, and we want to create a sequence. And by default, we always use digital SLR. I like to use a 24 frame per second. That's what Amber's used throughout all of her videos as well. That's what I kind of like to keep. And we want to just name this wide YouTube.
Yeah, that way like your different sequences. Like as I was dropping it on there, I was kind of like sometimes you can get ahead of yourself, and that's a good way to kind of like keep yourself in check too. Is like when you're dropping it onto your sequences, you can set that up to where if you're going to be posting to YouTube or if you're going to be posting to Instagram, like I was mentioning there, you might make sure that you have your sequence set up properly for that. And obviously, each camera records in different types of quality. So you may have a camera that's recording in 4K, 1.2.7 and one in 1080. So you have to keep that in mind with your sequence as well.
Exactly. And like she said, we're going to start with the wide version first because that's the easiest to create first. We're using the most surface area of the clip. And when we go later on to create something for maybe, a shorter version for maybe Reels or TikTok or something like that, we can take that entire wide version and we can create another sequence just by going into new item and creating another sequence. You can go into these settings and you can change the ratio of the canvas and what we're going to be outputting, i.e. for, like we said, Instagram, Reels, or TikTok. But for this case, we are going to start in wide, which is just your 920 by 1080. And that's going to be our sequence and our timeline. And then if we go back up here and go to Premiere.
We're going to do a quick little adjustment to
play.
We're going to fix the audio so that way it doesn't like scrub in your ear there.
That should be much better. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, just a couple little tweaks we had to do.
Technical tweaks, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to take this clip and we're going to bring it down onto our timeline. And it's going to ask us what we want to do. If we want to change the sequence settings, or if we want to keep the existing settings. If we want to keep these settings because we want to keep 1080 timeline. So we're going to keep that. And right as you notice, the first thing you're going to notice is that this clip is a little bit more zoomed in. It's because it was filmed in 4K and it's on a 1080 timeline. So we're going to right click down here on the clip and we're going to scroll down and we're going to set to frame size. And you're going to see that that zooms everything back out to the way that we remember it. You don't have to do this individually with every clip. What we like to do is we like to go through all of our clips and we like to put them on the timeline and then we can just batch select them, right click and set to frame size. But we wanted to walk you through that process so you're not like, oh, wait, what happened to that clip? It's all zoomed in.
Yeah, exactly. And there may be a couple things that we're doing for process of example here just to show you that maybe sometimes like when we're actually like kind of rushing through things or kind of maybe just try to get things done a little more timely order, we maybe do it in a batch selection there too. So yes, and if you that way when we're scrubbing through these clips here, you won't get that weird audio feedback. We just fixed that for you. So let's go ahead and see if you can zoom in here on your timeline. You can get a better look and closely on what you're working with here. So we have this first clip on here, just something to work with. Me jumping off the rock just to get an establishing shot, get something on the timeline to work with. And I do remember when we were out there, I was taking another clip to kind of try and match it. One thing we talk a lot about is shooting to edit, like I was mentioning. So because I jumped off that rock and I kind of like was looking down at my feet and I landed, I wanted to create another sort of transition for me arriving at the place. Like, how are we going to get from coming down to this beach and then moving over to skimboarding? Like, where is that transition happening? And you can think in a story way, and how you want to make that fun is, for me, I was like, oh, well, let me just create a transition and maybe pulling it open or pulling the clip from my feet here and pulling it into another clip of me jumping. So when I was on the beach there, I filmed it again of me jumping down. So we'll go ahead and create an in and out point here as well. And then I go ahead and I like push Paddy. I'm like, all right, go for a wave. So let's create an out point there and pull this onto the timeline. Mind you, this was filmed upside down. Of course, we can kind of flip that around. It's not going to actually show upside down. So we'll go ahead and flip that around really quick just so you can get a better look at that.
We'll go up in here and we'll go to our effects panel It's right up here, effects controls. And we have our clips selected. And what we're going to want to do is we are going to want to rotate it 180 degrees. And that will flip that just like that. And that's all we need to do. So never worry about if the clip's upside down for some reason. Just flip it and post. You'll be good. Don't waste your time filming it again.
Yeah, and what's cool is of course you can always set that to frame size again, and then you're right back at having the proper frame for the sequence and the timeline that you're working on. We were mentioning before, it's great to have sometimes that 4K footage on a 1080 timeline because you could actually zoom in without losing quality. So on a clip like this, for instance, let's say that I wanted to zoom more in on Paddy's face, you would be able to technically if you wanted to, because it's a 2.7 clip and you'd be able to zoom in closer. Obviously Paddy's not down for that, so we're going to skip that. But it's just an example, and we'll actually play through that in a couple ways later on in this edit. So let's just see what we're working with here, just to see an establishing. So as you can see here, that transition was a little off. I'm going to show you just real quick how to just get something, like there's plenty of times that I'm like editing, I'm so lost. Like, I don't know where I'm going with this, even though I thought I had an idea, and we're like working through it in our heads, and we're like, all right, so where should we go with this? And a lot of times you just kind of have to do something like this in camera and clip it together and kind of make a new story out of it. All right, so that looks a little better there. You can always get closer in here and trim, make the transition a little better. So I jumped there, kind of ended up here. You can see here I'm trimming it a little bit more. So we have it. So there we go.
Go get one.
Pushing me around.
All right. All right, so pushing Paddy around there, it's pretty cool how you can kind of just end up somewhere when you just create a little transition, just have a little fun with it. So that allows us to like now start our story of like, all right, we have all these clips of us skimboarding in Mexico or in Laguna. It's like, well, how do we even start this story of how did we get there? Maybe we forgot to film that. A lot of times I'm so in the moment, and maybe we forget some of our B-roll and we're traveling, and we really want to just be able to show how we got there, later on. And this is one way to do it. So I'm going to throw him for a wave, and then we're going to go back into this project bin, and let's see what other clips that we have from that day. Because if I go back to the Laguna Beach skim, I can look back at this other camera that I had recording, which was the GoPro, and we were working with our friends here. And so now we have other clips to choose from. So what's cool about, kind of going through the clips in here, you can almost see what you're working with before kind of putting it into a bigger view here, or even putting it onto your timeline. Kind of helps you save time just to kind of scrub through like that. I know we have a cool little clip somewhere in here of Paddy going for a wave.
Is that front side down at the bottom?
Yeah, it's right here. Yeah, it's a sick one. So found a little clip here of Paddy. Sometimes I don't like, or we both don't really like to like go through each moment and pick in and out points, because it takes too much time. So just pull it right in. Oop, let's go back. If you ever mess up, you just do Command Z and snap it right there. Now we have it on our timeline to where we have the full clip, and we can even do it right to where he's dropping, make it a fun point. That way it kind of like wakes you up a little bit if you're watching. So we have that now. Let's go over and watch it here.
Go get one.
Cool. So like we could even add more run to it if we wanted to. So that way he has a little more to work with here. And so, let's see here. Hack. So now we're in into the skimming. So it's kind of cool as a way to think about like, well, how do I dive into like the good stuff, right? Like, how do I make this fun? Because a lot of times it's always like overwhelming to think of like, oh, okay, well, I need like a beginning, middle, and end. And sometimes the middle is more fun to kind of look at. Thank you guys all for the comments too. I'm checking out everybody in the comments in between, and there is a way to do a kickflip on the skimboard, by the way, just so you know. There's a lot of people out there that are crazy enough to do that, and even Paddy I've seen like land a kickflip on a skimboard.
Few in my day. They're scary though.
Unfortunately, we
Very
don't
scary.
have. Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't have that on film right here to show you, but this is called a frontside hack, and it's a pretty sick one. It's fun to film. When you're skimboarders filming a skimboarder, it's cool because you kind of understand the style as well, and you can really get a feel for what they're going to do before they do it, and you kind of know. So the one thing I can say from that too is the more you film, the more your experience you're going to have with what you're filming, and you're just going to get better and better every time you go out there. So you'll have more and more ideas. So pulling from that, I already know, I think I had like one wave over here that I can pull from. That's kind of similar to what Paddy did, but opposite, like the backside. So he did a front side and I did a backside. So we can cut to that, have some in and out points, kind of cut to a wave that I got, possibly even there too. We can even cut this down. And of course, in between, we can find moments to add and make this more fun, the Laguna side, but it's cool to kind of just get a feel and a style of what we want to do for the storyline. And then we can always go back in and add stuff later to our timeline. But for now, we're kind of just trying to add everything that we can to our timeline and see how we can kind of make this story even flow. So now that we have a couple clips from Mexico, or from Laguna, I think it would be cool to find that Laguna, Mexico. I'm kind of back and forth, but to kind of try and find that way to transition into, how did we get to the next spot? How do we travel? So I always think it's fun to not do it necessarily the traditional way and to work with what you have. And let's say you forgot to film the clips on the plane or the whole clips to even get there. Maybe the commute just like, skipped your mind, you had too many margaritas or something. So you basically can, do stuff like this. I had this old clip that I remember that I was talking to the camera and I said, like, it's too cold out here. I'm done with this. We're done here. So I'm going to put that here at the end. Let's see that. And I even cover up the camera. So I found this moment where we can kind of flip around too. Let's go ahead and flip that around.
Go up to our effects panel again, and everything that you guys need here is to flip this around. It was filmed in 2.7K, so for the sake of this one, what we're going to do is we're going to set it to frame size so we get the full. So
yep.
The GoPro, it has that horizon thing where if you hold the GoPro vertical, it's going to give you a vertical video, like if you were filming with your phone. And in this case, she must have pushed play while it was registering vertical. So I think that if we scrub through here to see a good degree, we can just go to this rotation tab here and we can just rotate it this way like this. Here we go. That looks good. And we will scale it back to the size that we need. Now the clip should be ready to go. Let's see.
All right, my hands are frozen. I think we're done out here.
Yep, bam.
Boom. So that's a fun little way to kind of work with audio in your vlogs or in your YouTube style, anything that you're creating that you want to tell a story. You can find different elements, whether you're talking to the camera for a moment or whether you have that option to maybe add it as a caption later. There's different ways to kind of go about that. So in this case, I remember that I had that option to where I was saying like, all right, it's cold, we're done here. So we were able to do that as well. And transitions, I'm seeing also in the comments here, a couple of people mentioning, the transitions and the different platforms. I believe transitions are really big for, any sort of, whether you're actually trying to maybe create a gimmicky transition or you're just trying to transition from scene to scene. I always find it to be super important because it helps the flow and the vibe of like what you're creating. So with my case, I kind of started with transitions because I didn't even really know how to edit when I was working with an iPhone, years ago. I was just like playing around with the clips that I had, and I just thought it was fun to almost like match clips and play around with things that kind of could flow with each other. And I found that to be a very key part of our process and how we make our videos flow. So I definitely think that if your transitions are something that you want to work on, you'd have a lot of fun doing it. It will help your style as well. So we'll go ahead, and when I cover up here, let's find a way to kind of transition into Mexico. So I believe if we go over to the video folder, we have some Mexico skim. And what's always fun too, I like kind of, this is not a necessity, but like transferring from camera that's the same to another camera that's the same. So in this instance, GoPro to GoPro, it kind of makes the vibe and the feel more kind of like fluid, and it's not going to be like so awakening, like, oh, well, I was just seeing like this quality or this type of camera, and then all of a sudden it's switching to like a DSLR or mirrorless. So I'm going to hop actually and see what we have available into this GoPro folder. We have some POV style stuff. We have some other like waves, as you can see if I'm scrubbing through. Some of them captured upside down because you just got to push play or push record in the moment. So what it would be fun is to find a video clip that actually covers the screen, so that way since I'm covering the screen on the end here, as you can see on the timeline side, so I cover it up here. If there's a way that something comes from covered, it would be best. So if we take a look here, let's see this intro moment possibly that I have of let's go ahead.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and you guys can always let us know what you think. Of the clips. We're taking a look at the comments. I'm stoked to see you all in there, and it's just cool to see. It's definitely a combo. Like if you're not on Behance, also you're maybe not seeing the comments. If you're tuning in from YouTube or wherever on Behance, you'll be able to join into that comment section. And I mean, skimboarding, as I'm seeing here, it looks like it's a combination of flying, surfing, sailing, everything. It really does feel like that. I mean, Paddy can even probably be on the same page. It feels like this mix, and that's why it's almost like so addicting, essentially.
Yeah, there's something about sliding over the top of the water, and there's a lot of timing that goes along with skimboarding. You're not really riding the wave, you're going against something's coming at you and you're going against it. So there's a lot of working with the ocean and kind of realizing when the best time to go is, and kind of what the ocean is allowing you to do, because the ocean rules all. You really don't have any control. You got to work with it.
Yeah. If anybody has ever tried skimboarding before, you can you probably know, it's a very like big learning curve a lot of times for people, because it's such a crazy mix, and definitely recommend trying it sometime too. So here is another clip of skimboarding, so you can kind of get a feel for that first person view. I have actually filmed this with the GoPro in my mouth, with a GoPro mount called MyGo mount, and it's really fun to be able to get these angles. So I pulled the whole clip onto my timeline, but I want to make sure precision like kind of cut it right here. That way when I cover up the camera, we got to go really close, so that way we make sure that we get these. Every frame, I say, is super important, so that way you can make it as seamless as possible. So yeah, even when I cover up the camera there, I have that one extra frame that I want to kind of cut out. And then we have there, and we can always get this a little closer, but for now we just have an idea of what we're working with, just to see if this even works. We're frozen. I think we're done out here. And now what we can do is we can set this to frame so we can see a little bit more of what we're working with. And then out here. There we go. Now, I think we had Paddy on the camera at the other angle for this shot. So, a lot of times you don't always get the I guess the convenience of having another filmer. But in this case, we did have another filmer. Like I said, we had a couple people set up for this trip to be able to capture the shots that we needed. So we're able to kind of switch from this POV moment and switch to the other cam and kind of capture that other angle. In some cases, you may want to use, your all of your GoPro, your POV moments, and find ways to transition between each other. I have examples of my videos where I actually explain how I do that in my previous Adobe Lives. So if you happen to catch my Adobe Live with Premiere Rush, which also works well with Premiere Pro, setting up on the go, you'll see how if you're a creator that really just doesn't have anybody to work with, like let's say you just, you're never going to be really out with anyone, that's just the nature of your job and where you're at right now. There's different ways to really continue through all this footage and this flow of this story without having to have that second camera angle. And you can check out that older Adobe Live as well to see how I do those transitions. And then also my other Adobe style tutorials that I've done in the past that are still alive on like Adobe Max and things like that to kind of explain to you how to work around those obstacles as well. So for this particular case, we're actually going to cut here because we do know we have that other camera angle, and we can go right back into the bin and we can see where that camera angle is, which we can find it. Let's see. So I believe we actually have it in the B-roll folder right over here. And let's go ahead and find that clip. Yeah. So if we pull open this one here, we have a clip of me getting onto that same wave from over here. So what's cool is we can kind of choose an endpoint, maybe like here. And then we can choose an out point. I do a little spin. And let's choose, oh, that just shows another endpoint. So you can always pop back over and fix your endpoint here. And scroll over. And you can always pull your endpoint like this if you accidentally mess up like that. And let's just see what we got.
And you'll see with this clip, once she goes over it, what we were talking about in filming in 4K. This particular camera, this shot that's in the source monitor right here, was filmed with the A7S III, which is a 4K capable camera, very capable camera. And this over here to the left was filmed with a GoPro in, I believe, 2.7K in 60 frames a second. So when we look at this next clip of the A7S III, you're going to see that it's very, very zoomed in. And that's kind of the benefit of the 4K. Like she said, we always do have more frame to work with, but you could zoom it in all the way to 100%, and which is what it's at right now. And it's still going to look really, really good. But you still do, if you were to go to your effects controls panel and you were to zoom out, it's going to take some time for it to catch up. You'll see that you have all this clip to work with. But like she said, when she was making jokes about zooming in on my face, this is kind of that scenario where we might keep it zoomed in. It looks really good zoomed in. To me anyways, that's just my opinion, but she has that freedom to kind of play around with how she wants it, and it's still gonna look good right out of the box.
Sweet. Yeah, I think that's like really well said, because I mean, it's really about, even when you get down to the final edit, you may think it looks good, zoomed in. And then we get to the point where we may get to tomorrow, where we start keyframing and zooming into different clips and helping those transitions flow even better. So you may have a transition to where, like, oh, well, like it matches, like I'm jumping from here, this wave goes to that other angle, but it makes it look even better when you add some, keyframe scaling, zooms in and things like that, where we can make it even look better. And having that extra canvas essentially to work with, being able to have that 4K footage allows you to really work with it more and be able to get it to where you need it to look smooth. So we have here like this footage, and we'll go ahead and go up on here and let's see. So
and like in the comments, I do hear it does make it easier with transitions and any kind of movement keyframes or anything like that, you'll see that, just quick zoom ins, or if you want to create any kind of whip transition, instead of just, throwing one on to save time, you can keyframe and do whatever you need to, and you're not going to have that degradation in quality as you would in starting out and just filming in 1080. That's because as soon as you zoom in, you're going to lose that quality. But if you're 2.7 or 4K, I mean, I always find myself using the entire frame. Like, sometimes I like the quality of that, but as she's scrubbing through the timeline right here, that still looks crispy and it's considered zoomed in because we're on that 1080 timeline.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And then we get further into it, right here, we're kind of just looking at it like in its raw form, essentially. You can see how when you're going from a GoPro clip to a DSLR clip or a camera clip, some people may even work with red cameras or anything like of that quality. So, the color is even a little bit different here and there. We have to actually find ways, and Premiere Pro actually has ways to match the color as well, to where we want to make sure that it doesn't feel so shocking that we're going from this GoPro look to this DSLR look, and on from there. So if we play this clip out, we can see here that now we've cut from that, and now we have like a little bit of a clip there. So basically, we have, we've cut into Mexico, and we have this style of video to where now we've kind of opened it with skimboarding, and it's of course it could vary in any way. We could be going on a trip to where there's no skimboarding at all. We've been to places like Canada and Whistler where it's all snow, and we could open up with maybe a different type of action. And maybe, for instance, for your channel or for anything that you're working on, or for a client, it could be about food, it could be about fashion, it could be about anything like that. Really what we're trying to do, and what you're seeing here on the timeline, that what we just created very quickly, is the fact that we want to just kind of hook our audience in the beginning and kind of establish what we're going to be, not necessarily like the main part of the video, but like what is our fun in this video, like what is like the main action of this video. So we kind of like to kind of wake people up with that right away, somewhere in the beginning, especially in a YouTube style video that's going to be more long form, whether it's 1 minute, 2 minutes, or 10 minutes. Making sure people want to stick around, especially in that first 15 seconds, 30 seconds of time in your timeline, is super important. So you can pull clips that are completely different from this to kind of make sure that you allow yourself. For instance, with this particular project, what I would do probably as well is I'd go back into my my bin here and check my videos and see what other options I have for clips that aren't just so like transition to transition to transition. Like transitions are great and we were talking about that in the comments. But the thing is too, you want to be able to kind of slow people down when you need to as well. Find points of where there's breathing rooms to understand what's happening, or maybe to tell that story and things like that. So what I'll basically do is we'll come over here to let's check out our drone footage. Drone footage is great for, maybe titles or establishing shots and things like that, kind of getting people ready for what, maybe going into the next scene or just introing. So let's pull this Laguna Fog clip in. Now, if you want to pull it in, so if I were to pull it in over this, it's going to kind of delete all those clips that I've already pulled in, just like that. And we don't want to do that. So I'm going to Command Z that, just to show you by example. I'm going to pull this in here, and then we want to hold the Command button, so that way we can actually put it in the beginning. And now it kind of like locks that to the beginning. So that way this whole clip, even though we haven't gone through it yet and we haven't got to analyze it, we have it in the beginning, and it's kind of just floating there for us to go back to, right? We could even click here, and we can click M, and I've made a marker to almost remind ourselves that, like, hey, like, even if we're working together on this project and he starts it off and pass it to me, or vice versa, these markers here are here to tell you, like, okay, like, this is where we want to go back and remember, like, okay, maybe we'll do a title here, or maybe we'll come back and add some keyframing, things that we need to remember. Like, it's probably going to have to be pushed somewhere else, but I can adjust this for now just to give us a little more space to work with. but what we're going to be working with is basically keeping this for a placeholder and seeing where we want to put it in the future. But we know we want to use this moment probably of this clip, this nice moment where you can see it kind of pulls into the clouds. So we'll cut from there. I think it starts about right here. Cut that, and then we'll have that moment right there. So we'll cut that as well. So now what we're working with is at least a moment that we can move at any point in time, right? Because you don't always know going right into it unless you've storyboarded this whole video out from start to finish. Like, you know, okay, this is clip 1, 2, 3, 4, which is not as ideal if you have that, but it's not always gonna be the scenario, especially going into a travel video, because in traveling, you know, especially, you know, it's basically like you're going to go into anything and things are going to change. You know, your flight could be delayed. You could not even make it there. You could make it to another island if you're going somewhere else. So that's something to always keep in mind, to be prepared for, and to have extra footage to work with, and not be afraid to pull from footage from other trips or older footage that you can repurpose. So let's kind of go into now. I'm going to pass this over to Paddy and let him pick a few of his moments that I think it would be great to kind of see his perspective and see what clips that he would choose based on this trip. And then what he can always do is pass it back over to me and say, okay, so here's the moments that I've put on the timeline. Now, how do we, almost like a puzzle piece, how do we make them fit together properly? So.
Exactly. And Amber, she's really known for her transition. Excuse me, her transitions and really keeping everybody kind of interested. And, you know, it's really high energy. And that's what we often do is, you know, she'll get a good basis going. And since I'm behind the camera 90% of the time, she'll hand it off to me to go pick off moments. We've been working together long enough to where she trusts me picking out these moments for her to use, so she can do whatever else she needs to do while I'm taking care of some of the other like easier stuff that makes her life easier. And, you know, and that's just going through the clips and picking out moments that she can use. And just jumping right into it, you know, we were in Mexico. That's where the story kind of ended up. So my mind is I'm going to try and give her some clips from Mexico. And I go into our B-roll folder, which is in our regular project panel. So we go to B-roll, and I have my 2 cameras to work from here, the A7S III and the Lumix S5. I'm a little bit more familiar with what's in the A7S III because that's the camera that I was behind. And our partner, Jeremy, he was using the Lumix when he was out of the water. So I'm going to start with these A7 III clips. And as you can see, I can scrub through here and I can look through them, or like Amber said, we can double click this and we can bring it into the source monitor. It's all really personal preference. And as you can see, that's actually me. Jeremy was using the A7S III and getting some shots of me doing some different stuff. But
it's good to capture behind the scenes stuff like this too. If you want to even drag it onto the timeline, this is something that I would say, tell Paddy to go ahead and just drag that onto the timeline and put it aside. Let's just show kind of like how that workflow, you know, in certain scenarios are like, we have these clips that are just kind of put to the side. We're like, all right, well, they're not really clips that we know for sure we're going to use, but they're actually really good to have those moments on the timeline because let's say we get to the end of this video, right? And we've put it together and we're like, all right, let's put a bow on it and it's ready to go. But we have these other clips that are put aside and we like really liked those moments, but we didn't really get a chance to use them in the final cut. Like they just didn't make the final cut. Yeah. We can take those moments and make it completely separate behind the scenes video. And so it's really just about using what, like working with what you have, like we were saying in the beginning, is finding a purpose for all of these clips that you have and really making something out of them. You don't always have to feel like you don't have enough because there's always more that you can create from, or you can create a story out of. So we just have this moment of Paddy behind the scenes. To be honest, looking at it right now, I can almost tell Paddy that the plane might make it into the video, but that camera video picture frame of him might not make it. But I think it would be really, really sick to put in our behind the scenes teaser for the story on Instagram. So we'd be able to cut from putting that in the beginning before showing maybe a teaser into this video once we finalize it. And it's good to like kind of get you, it's okay like too to kind of get ahead of yourselves in those ways. Like as Paddy's scrubbing through the clips now and picking moments for us, I kind of always just have these, ahead thoughts where I'm like, all right, well, okay, this could go here, that could possibly go there. And it really just allows you to kind of rearrange, this way that you would do the timeline, and kind of gives yourself different ideas, because there's no one way that an edit's going to be able to come together, whether you feel like there's a certain way that it should be looking or not. You could put a different perspective on it and it could come out completely different. So,
and I see in the comments people are want to know what that camera is. That camera is that's the A7S III with the Rode Mic Pro on there and the Sony 70-200 f2.8. The camera that I'm being filmed on is actually the A7 III, which is my old camera. I still use that for photo, but the A7S III has become our workhorse and it's amazing. So,
yep. Some of the footage that you're seeing here, we like to edit in 4K a lot because of what we were mentioning before. Being able to edit in 4K really allows both of us to work with the footage a lot more. If we have a transition, whether we could even show you going into when we get into the nitty gritty of putting the clips together and choosing where we want them, actually taking, for instance, like this clip I'm seeing over in the corner of the iguana, maybe putting it near something like another subject and things like that. We can take a moment from him. That would be really cool. This iguana has it just had a meal.
Just had a meal.
It's got, the camera, when it's punched in, you could really even see like the ant crawling on his face. It's kind of incredible.
And also a little tip that I have for you guys, all of these windows, they are 100% customizable. If you're just going through this portion right now, a lot of the times, like I mentioned in the beginning, we're working with a lot of 4K and 2.7K footage. I will pick these moments in the source monitor. The source monitor will show me what they truly are, but as soon as the project monitor or the program monitor starts to reflect it, it's going to be that punched in unless I've changed it. And I mentioned previously that we usually just batch select and set to frame size. But if you want to get a better look at clips, you can always just click the edge of the box and you can zoom out this way. And you can kind of make the screen a little bit bigger to get maybe some more detail out of this. Show
that quality of that A7S III there. And Voodoo Val was saying, how many hours do we usually end up with off these trips? And, even just the transfer sometimes off of a day's worth of footage, it's, it takes a few hours to, and anywhere from an hour to 2 hours, maybe more, to transfer each camera, because we've been on trips to where we've, captured footage with the drone, for instance, and we lost the drone. And if we didn't transfer that footage before, we wouldn't have had it. So we always try every single day to go through and capture, or transfer that footage onto the computer and take that extra time before going into the next day. So let's actually hop over to that drone footage. Speaking of that, and let's get some of that B-roll on the timeline, because we can even talk about transitioning from different drone clips like that. Let's hop over to FPV Mexico. And
sorry about that, guys. FPV Mexico.
And let's go to let's grab both of those clips onto the source, and let's see what we can work with. So we'll show you an FPV clip that was planned and executed well, but then we'll also show you one that wasn't as well. But yeah, like when you're sorting through these clips, I don't put a time on it, to be honest. To get back to that question as well, is it's more of if you back that up, you started it's more of like, how many hours can you spend making sure you don't miss that moment.
Oh, that was a good one.
That's a sick one. Go ahead and out it right there. Yeah, there you go. And so, with this, it's like I try to go, as quick as possible, but to just be timely, but at the same time is I don't want to miss a moment. And I feel like you got to keep in mind your frame rates too. If you're shooting on a camera that's shooting 4K 120, or if it's so one thing too, when we're shooting drone, we'll go ahead and mute that audio of the drone, because that is we could even, mute the audio in general on that track just to kind
there
of
we go. Keep it smooth.
Yeah. And this footage, it could be an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours going through it. It could be as long as you need it to know that you could use that moment. And when you're in 120, a moment can be, 2 seconds could last a long time because it can be very much slowed down, and you want to make sure that you don't miss those moments. So taking your time on those moments is super important.
Oh, I flew back.
This
so that's
is,
another moment too.
Yep. We can even just
we'll just do it from here. And then if we need to cut it, we can drag it along again.
Yeah, we can even just stick with those that moment that we have with me and Chabe there. Okay. And we can head over to the crash. I think that would be really cool.
You think they want to see the crash?
I think we know we want to see that crash.
It's very, very heartbreaking.
Let's go ahead and pull over a moment from the Pelicans first, because that's a really cool establishing moment. So right here, let's go ahead and cut that. You can see the drone super loud. So what I'm looking at here, and what I'm kind of telling Paddy, like almost directing, like we kind of work together on choosing these different moments and where we think the in and out points would be. I look at this as like, okay, these are one of like the really sick, like the more sick drone clips, like the better drone clips of this kind of batch that we're working with. So we have that Laguna fog one that you all saw earlier. That is, I put at the beginning. And as you're noticing, I'm kind of having these drone moments sitting somewhere around the end and the beginning, and you'll see I'll try and float one in the middle. I like to play with drone clips as a way to transition less of like in your face transition, more of a smooth, like take a breather from everything that we've been working with type of transition. So I know it's easy to get lost in these FPV clips because they're sick. You could be scrolling through them forever, but that's where another point too is like you could be hours on these reviewing these clips. Like it's kind of insane. So what we'll do is we'll go over here and take a look at this FPV clip that so we have this audio cut here. And we have this clip where he just flies right between us and then over this wave. And right there, we have this moment of like, almost like we have a breath before it goes up, and we can slow that down. So I really like that clip as like an ending clip. So I'm going to go ahead and put that over here on the end and just keep that there just so we have it, and then we have this pelican, and this could be even a transition into it. But a lot of times with transitions, you could get caught up on like, oh, well, I covered up the camera and then I'm going to uncover the camera, or like this happened here. But a lot of times with transitions, I like to focus on movement. And the reason I would choose a clip to go here that's turning this way and then leading it into a clip that's also turning this way here would be just to keep that flow of motion. If the camera's going down and the next clip the camera's going up, you're going to feel like it's almost going to feel abrupt. So we want to find different moments that, let's see, the camera's turning in here and it's coming from like a warp, and you see that turn right there. That's where I want to cut from. And that's where I always, when I'm working with Paddy and we're directing, and I'm telling him, hold your line when he's flying, because a lot of times we don't want to have those sudden movements and turns when you're flying, when you're filming or anything. A lot of times that motion of smoothness in camera, it saves you for everything of putting these clips together and choosing these moments. So I chose that moment of turning there on his drone, and I'm going to choose that same moment of turning here. As soon as he stops turning that motion on this drone, I feel like it's no longer going to really flow into the next clip as well. So that's why right there, I'm just going to put these two together, save it for a side, and we'll kind of go from there as well. So we have like some iguana clips. We have some, maybe in the town clips to work with. We have some drone clips to work with. And then we can also go back into here and see what everyone's really looking for.
Yep. Here, let's give it to him on the, here, let me take this. Let's extend this just to make it, actually, let's bring the clip, let's bring it from here. So I'm going to set an in point just so we can have this crash here. We're going to bring down just the video. So with this source monitor, you can choose to bring just the video, or just the audio. And I'm going to bring just the, well, I mean, the audio is kind of cool when the drone hits the ground. Do
We'll
we
go
want
ahead
to
and
show
just
that?
we'll go ahead and just play it and see what we
let's turn it down for him.
let's just you don't need the audio on that either, so you can just go ahead and
there we go.
Might be super loud.
Might be too much. Okay, then we will just mute it just to be safe.
Yeah.
But yeah, here's that crash. So let's
go ahead and play that. So if we stop here, so a lot of times, like with FPV, the cool thing about FPV drones before we actually, comparing them to normal drones, it's cool to kind of make people feel like, okay, like this is something like a normal drone wouldn't be able to do. So that's why he went up and then was ready to dive. And the goal.
I hate watching it. It hurts me so bad.
Let's bring it back one more time. Let's watch it all the way through. The goal is to, like I said, not lose your motion and was also to follow me skimboarding and link up with me as I hit that wave.
And as I do this, there was a good question in the chat. There's been a lot of other cool things in the chat that's gone on, but I want to say I personally do not know if there's a hotkey for set to frame size. I would assume that if we went into the preferences right now, we might be able to set that up, but I've been just right clicking and scrolling down since forever. But I appreciate you giving me that thought. I am going to check that out.
Yeah, the hotkeys are definitely something you want to make sure that you set up, for your own personal style and use, this particular demo that we have set up in the workspace. We're kind of just, working along with what we have and starting from scratch essentially with you. But you can just keep that in mind that you can do it, however you like. Go ahead and replay that.
Okay, so here's the play. And like Amber said, the main thing about the FPV drone and the way that I get speed when flying is you have to kind of drop a little bit so you can keep the camera where it needs to be. But long story short, I did a long dive and I misjudged how fast I was actually going. And let's just say the quad or the drone hit the sand and it hit so hard that it didn't even hit the sand again. It just flew into the ocean, but we're going to see it right now. And the sound is muted for all of your sakes. But yeah, it hits and just flies.
It almost looks like
just flies right into it.
It almost looks like he intentionally crashed, but the thing is a camera, there's two cameras on it. So it's just what he sees and what the camera on top sees, what it's actually recording. So yeah, that's always good fun there, getting in a good crash and trying to laugh it off, trying to move on from it. We got two drones on that trip. So we had
and I did have a couple questions in the chat about what kind of drone it is, and it's actually a drone that is made by, it's a company called Beagle Drones. They're out of New Jersey, and they are an FPV company that's doing a lot of rad things right now, and I've been testing a lot, so that's the main one.
Yeah, so the droning is like, it's going crazy right now. Like,
fun.
We have so much fun with all the drones, like the automated drone that I use, Skydio, and that one too. There's just so much that you can really work with nowadays in style as well, like really finding your style and not just behind the camera with your hands, but now like with, a controller. So we have here more of like a base of like our story now. So we can kind of start working, like you have some moments that you picked, being in the town.
Oh, there's a good close-up.
Crazy quality. This here too. That's another cool moment. So if you guys see here, like we have essentially a timeline that's showing like, all right, we have clips all the way to 2 minutes and 59 seconds. We kind of want to know like where we want to sit at, as far as how long is this going to be, like where are we going? That's when we start having these questions in your mind, if you're working by yourself or if you're working with a team like Paddy and I, like how do we want to put this out? We want to put this out as a YouTube edit for, maybe like 2 minutes, because actually after 2 minutes, maybe we don't have enough content to really make that worth it. It's probably better to break down, this 3 minutes worth of video or 5 minutes worth of video down to 2 minutes to make it more engaging. And then we can break it down from there to maybe 1 30-second teaser
Mhm.
on Reels, because Reels on Instagram only fits up to 30 seconds. And then we can break it down. That can be used on TikTok. And then we could even break it down into a separate teaser for 15 seconds before it launches and things like that. Or we can pull separate sequences based on like one of the better clips that we have. So if this is one of my better waves of the actual trip, what I would do is I would actually take this clip, would copy it over to a separate sequence, which we'll show you tomorrow, and we'll build it out as its own separate clip that teases this whole edit that we have here. So kind of, the output and how we export everything and share it is just as important as, actually making this whole edit. So let's see what we have, what we're working with just from scratch here. We have this
the
intro
audio muted still.
Yep, and that's cool because we're about to get over to our song, because now that we have like a general idea of what we're working with, we need to get over to the vibe. So we see what we're working with here. We end up here, we're at the beach. Tell Paddy to go. Transitions to him actually catching that wave. Boom. I think we can add in a couple more skim clips here. So we kind of just review it together just to see what we have on the timeline. These moments are just kind of just extras. We'll cut out some of those moments, just seeing what we're working with raw here. Boom. It was too cold in Laguna, transition right to Mexico. We got this clip here. We got this wave. And then we got a little blank area. And this is where we're like, okay, so where are we going from here? Like, we don't really know. We just have extra clips on the timeline. We're starting to get a feel for like, okay, like this clip, I don't think we're going to be using. So I'm going to pull it way over here. These ones here, this is the crash. So we know we just putting this on here for fun. So we can get rid of that. The comments about the drone are so funny. Yeah, I mean, the drone thing it's just part of the game. I feel like Paddy's had to watch through the goggles him go down a couple times more than he's wanted to, but it's just part of
Crashing in the goggles is not fun.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and like cut these clips down and see what we're working with here. We'll probably use an iguana moment. Definitely an iguana moment. Dang, those colors are so sick, and we haven't even got to color correction yet. Like, we're going to be getting into that. It's going to be super cool. I like moments like this where you kind of like the iguana's like looking right at the camera. And when you have a moment like this too, like I always tell Paddy, and since we've been working together, I'm going to go ahead and delete that since I already have a moment over here, is the hardest thing is getting rid of clips, because especially when you have a personal connection to them, you were behind that camera, you were filming it, right? Like, you were in that moment and it's like, oh, that was a sick clip, or it could look of quality, more than it could be even useful. Like that clip of this iguana may still not make this edit. It looks super sick and I could use it for something else, but it may come down to it just doesn't fit that flow, doesn't fit that story. Maybe it's just made for a better edit. So the biggest thing with choosing clips and getting this timeline and narrowing it down, I always say is try not to hold on to everything. Work with what, choose those best moments and work with what you have with those moments, because sometimes the moment could be a lot stronger than it going from clip to clip to clip, just because you personally wanted the audience to see that image because you had a personal connection to it, whereas the audience may not have that same personal connection to it. So trim those areas for sure. It will help you in the long run. Okay, so we have moments here. So what I'm thinking here, thanks again for all the great feedback. It's really cool seeing people even from Australia, us being over here in the States, being in Australia would be a dream sometime. We've been wanting to go there and, skim on the Gold Coast or somewhere over there. So it'd be super fun. So we have here, extra clips. So this is a clip of me by the iguanas, and then we have the iguanas. So we definitely want to put these by each other as well. Try and keep the flow together. Now we have, let's see, plane, sitting by the iguanas, and then getting there. So these two clips to me kind of tell the story of getting there, the plane and here. So I like to always show, like think of story, like, okay, so here's a frame of an iguana, and then here's me by the iguanas, but how did I get there? Sometimes it's cooler to like actually show that. So having these clips, even if you were just driving somewhere completely different, your audience doesn't know how you, or the time frames that you filmed all this stuff. So don't ever feel too tied to your personal connection to how it actually went down either, because that's another thing that you could get caught up in. You could come back from this trip and you're like, well, we filmed this the first day and then we filmed this the eighth day. But if you get caught up in that, then you could lose really what your story could be, because no one else is going to know when you actually went through all of that stuff. It's more of just like, okay, how can you tell it through visuals and through what you have in the tools in Premiere Pro? So working through here, I want to put this batch of clips together because they kind of fit. At some point from skimming, we got in the car clearly, and this just shows more visuals on travel, and then we went to go see something completely different, like these iguanas here. So we have that mix in there as well. So let's get into more factors here of the actual edit and pulling it together. When we were watching here, I pushed you and you went into skimmed. It didn't really look that cool. That I don't know how you feel, Paddy, but like when you hit that hack, like it kind of just went to me skimming, and to me that kind of feels boring. Like I feel like there's more we could have played with there, because the camera went underwater. Like I feel like we could give the audience more to that. So if you want to go over there and look at the Laguna Beach skim clips, if you hop over to the GoPro clips, we can find maybe an in and out moment of the water covering up, and maybe we could even put it in reverse. That would be kind of fun. So
like this right here, it goes underwater and then you come up.
And to see it a little better, let's actually put it into the source.
And we can also, if you want these to be larger as well, you have all of your icons down here. You can get this to make those just a little bit larger. But if we want to go through all of these, then we can
even do like a dive of, like, if you see over here, like there's a
down at the bottom, I think.
There's actually a slide out. There's me slapping the water with my board. And then I believe there's me even diving underwater.
That'd be cool.
So let's see what we can work with here. So we have a fun little video here of me and Deanna, my friend, jumping into the water. We come from here. We dive in. So we want to pick it like right around here. See how the bubbles are covering up? We want to go there because we want to make sure that it's covering up the full screen. Let's see this moment. So I don't really like how that was all that much. We're freezing this day.
It was so
cool. Mind you, these clips aren't all that great when it comes to focusing underwater on what we're doing. But you see here I have that moment of I chose going under, where it's like covering up the whole screen, and then right when we were about to go up to the top. So let's add that in over here so we have a second, and then go ahead and let's see. It was right here, right? Okay, so we'll go ahead and take this. Remember to hold command, so that way when you're putting that clip in the inside of that timeline, that it slips in there instead of goes on top of your other clips. You don't want to make that mistake. So when Paddy goes in there, well, let's just see what I did. And now we're underwater here. Okay, and so now that's just another way to kind of make it look cool, to where like, oh, okay, well, I wasn't expecting that. Like another way to keep your audience engaged. That's what we're all about, like as far as creating videos, especially for social media, and especially nowadays. These comments are getting me. May the force be with all of you guys. And basically just try to, keep them engaged. We're all trying, just like finding a way to distract them to what they were watching. They thought they were going to be watching something else, the same way like these comments to keep me, laughing and keep us all going. Like, that's what we really all want. We want to have fun when we're creating. So finding your own style, and this is just our style that we've kind of developed, my style that I've been working on for a long time, by filming myself and not having Paddy to work with in the beginning. We both have to work alone sometimes and on our separate projects, and we have to find a way to kind of still make things come to life without having that extra person and that extra help. So if we look here and we find where I went underwater, I'm going to precision edit this a little bit more to where the sand is covering up the lens a little bit more, and that will help the flow feel a lot better. So if we go here like that, there we go. And there's that flow. And then when I come up out of the water, what I want to try and do is find a way to make that next clip not feel so like it just happened out of nowhere. You know what I mean? So what I want to do is maybe find a way to give more to this clip. So sorry about that. So let's add a little bit more to that clip and see if there's a moment where maybe like the splash comes up. And what's cool is what we face a lot, and I always tell you, a lot of people that we're working with is, we're not in a studio shooting a lot of the times. There's plenty of times that there could be a project where you may be shooting in the studio and you have just like consistent things that you're working with. But for our case, we don't ever know what's going to happen. We could be getting the wave of our life, and then a water spot gets right in the way, and then that's it. Then you're like,
do it again.
Yeah. So in this case, what we do is we try and use the elements that are usually not to our advantage. We try and use them to our advantage. So I was actually trying to add more onto the wrap clip, because what we want to do is we want to take this clip separately, the wrap clip, and add actually a lot to it, because what we're doing is we're looking for a moment. Oops, sorry, I grabbed all of those. We're looking for a moment in the beginning, beforehand, that maybe could offer us that option of the camera. So if we're looking at this clip here, on the left-hand side, we don't have any areas where the camera covered up the screen. So in this instance, there's not really much we can do with transitioning and coming up out of the water here, because coming up out of the water here, I want to have something that, reveals from the water somewhere else. So in this case, we could use a clip like this, add it in maybe here after this. So I come up out of the water, and then maybe we can take this clip here where we're just messing around, and we could put it in reverse. So let's see. And this is like, you guys are actually seeing like this legit workflow. Like, I don't really know what to expect here, but I'm really just trying to find that moment where it's like, oh, right there. So I can cut right there, and then I can get really close in on here and find that moment of where it came up out of the water, which I think is actually right there. So you want to make sure it's like super precision, because that way you don't see the difference. And then there it is.
And then we want to put that in, and then do it in reverse.
And then we could do it in reverse. Yeah, I was thinking we could do it in reverse, or we need to find an out point though. That's the other thing too, is like there was no out point of that. So as I'm just messing around the water, and this is just like one of those things where you don't really know what you're working with here. Like, I don't know if that's actually going to work, because we're still facing that instance where how do we transition into the next one? Because this out point is so far away, right? The next time like the water covers up the edit here. So this way, even if you reverse it, you see how there's no out point there. So in this case, this clip could go over to the side. Like, I'm not really sure if we actually could use this clip now that I'm looking at it, now that I'm seeing that there. So really what we want to do is we really just want to find, and I know the clip actually, I remember seeing it when we were reviewing before. There was a clip here of Paddy coming up out of the water like that, where you kind of cover up the lens. And then there's also some more clips over here as well where you fall. So there's another one too. So that there, like what we want to do is we want to work with finding a way to just try and get that transition out of the water to there. Did you remember a moment that that covered up the clip there on your side? Because there's one here too.
The best one that I was thinking was, because the idea that I had was to reverse the clip that we had and then kind of make it quick and then on to the next one of you kind of hitting the wave.
Yep.
I think that would have been cool, because that's, I mean, I'm trying to think like I would, you know, if I was Amber Torrealba and I was putting this edit together. So
yeah, no, I mean, like we both kind of like work together on these for the most part. So it's kind of just like a, you know, a meeting of the minds and how we're going to really like put this together. Like, I think it'd be really cool, even like this, like, you know, we kind of just kind of talk it through. And by seeing this, we can kind of maybe pull an in and out point of here. Actually, let's just pull it from.
And it's real. The camera's actually coming out of the water, which makes it easy.
Yeah, which is cool.
Oh, don't watch. I think this is the fall, right?
Yeah, boom.
Oh, man.
And what's cool is what we want to do is we want to take it from here to of like possibly where you have those water spots, because we can go underwater here, right there, go out, pull that, and then pull this clip onto here. Okay, and then go ahead and reverse that clip. We'll kind of see what that looks like. Reversing a clip is one way that we really like to kind of play around with how, you know, the look and the feel is, the vibe.
Let's see, we also have these two.
Yep, and you can set the frame. And go ahead and show like how you actually put it in into reverse.
Yeah, the same way that I put it in reverse is you right click the clip and you roll down. This is just an easy way that I do it for quick reverse. You have speed and duration there. And this comes up. You also have the opportunity to change the speed if you want to. Reverse, and you can change your time interpolation there, but that's a whole nother can of worms. But we're just going to reverse speed here, and that will 100% reverse the clip. And now you'll see that auto save, but as it comes out of the water,
boom. And so we can actually go ahead and slow that down as well,
where it's like right here almost.
I would say what would be cool is to slow that entire clip down, and you could even speed ramp it, slow to fast. And this is where like we get into the types of the edits where, you know, we're still figuring out where we're putting things, but we're playing around with how we can do it. So if you want to go ahead and put that
and do it, and doing these things and like having the ideas in your mind about if it's going to be good to kind of do a speed ramp or do something like that. Like you can see if the clip works in general. You know, she's coming up out of the water here, and then it does that. And even when it comes to, hold on, I'm going back to get the full length of the clip back, as you can see. Oh, never mind, here we go. So now we have it regular. Let's see what this looks like. So I went through and almost all the way up. Okay.
You see how he's kind of like lengthened that track so you can see more of the track.
See more.
And that will kind of allow you to see what you're working with a little bit more.
And this is the idea that I kind of had, is if I were to do something like this, where she's coming up out of the water here, and this is just my mindset. This is kind of how we bring our minds together. But this is actually a clip coming out of the water like this. And if we were to play with that there, just to see what it looks like. Now let's lengthen this on the end side of it and see what we have. But that didn't really work either. So I like what Amber originally had. And let's reverse this. And I'm gonna right click and do the same thing that I did over again. And that's reverse the clip because we're back where we started.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just part of the process. You have to try things and see how they're gonna work at first, and go from there.
And Amber wanted to lengthen this as well to come through here.
Yep, and we want to stop right on those actual where the, let's see here. So if we go play through this clip here, reverse it. Right there where you see those, there's a reason why I'm picking a particular frame, and it's because it's going to give me, it's setting me up. You want to set yourself up for the best options to work with. So I'm actually going to cut this right here because I don't like any of that either. Let's see here, go ahead and delete that. And then your cut, obviously your hotkeys are set up for you cropping and you making a cut tool. So what do you like your cut tool to be?
My cut tool or my razor tool, I always like, or my add edit tool is what you would search for in the Adobe keyboard shortcuts. My add edit tool is K. That's what it's always been. I know I overwrote something, but it was so long ago that I wouldn't be able to tell you. And another hotkey that I really, really like, just as an example, I'm going to take this clip of Amber on the timeline. Say, for instance, I like the clip all the way to here. I'm going to add an edit. That's just a cut. And then before that, let's say I only wanted to use it from here. We're going to add another edit. And if I use what we call the ripple delete tool, I have this part of the clip that is selected. I'm going to click comma, which is my hotkey, just so I can have K and the comma right there. It's very easy for one hand to use. I hit comma and it's going to delete the clip, but also delete the space that it was in. And to put it easier, like if I wanted to delete this whole section and I just highlight it and click delete, now I have to highlight these, move them over, or I have to click this again and then delete. But if I highlight it and use the ripple delete tool and I have my hotkey set to comma, it does it automatically. And that, when you're going through and you have, longer videos, these little seconds, they will save you loads of time at the end. So I definitely recommend looking into hotkeys and getting something comfortable that really works for you.
Yeah, I mean, we could even show you the hotkey tool or what it looks like. If you pull up like what ours are even just like set up right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just for an example. But these are all just different ways that we could you can set up your keyboard. Just little examples to save you time. I just wanted to point out that Adobe decided to use my Pro Model colors to to use the hotkeys. And my board is teal and purple. So thanks.
And this is a good opportunity to see if we can set a hotkey for set to frame size when working with 4K footage. Let's see. So you're going to want to go into your search bar and let's just type in set. And we can scroll down to see, oh, look, there it is, set to frame size. Shout out to, I think it was, I can't remember who it was, but shout out to you guys in the comments for this. So you would click here and you can create your own shortcut. For me, I don't think I ever use S. I'm going to hit Command and you'll see how that brings it up, and then hit S. Adobe will tell you that it was already taken for Command S. So I do use something for that. So instead of Command S, you can take that out and let's do Command F. That's perfect.
Yeah, because
So
we don't
F.
even use the find that much, but you could always change it. This is just an example
Yeah,
of
just
how
an example of
you can change it. You
whatever
can
you
save
wanna
it right
do.
over here and move and kind of move on back to your edit, and just little things like that to kind of like save you time down the line is really going to help you you know, get used to the way that you want to edit. Our hotkeys are set up like slightly differently, but it works very similar, you know, the way that we kind of work together. We always say, so, you know, same, maybe different language on certain things with editing, but you know, really it's just getting the job done and kind of bringing your minds together to create little things like this and little transitions. So after that popped out of the water, you got a chance to see how to use speed and speed ramping and things like that, because popping up out of the water here, it gives us an opportunity to kind of transition into something else, kind of wake people up. And you know, and what you're seeing is more of just our process. This isn't necessarily how the edit is actually going to look when we post it on YouTube. We do want to challenge ourselves to, after we finish these 2 days of live streams, you know, you can join us tomorrow. Don't forget, if you are watching today, you know, we'll be editing more of the, you know, effects and sound and color and getting more diving into those details tomorrow as well. And you'll be able to see kind of how we finish this off and maybe try to pull it together a little more. And then we'll try to maybe finish this edit and post it sometime as well on YouTube. So that would be super fun. We'll keep you guys up to date with that. And just a reminder too, you'll be able to submit your challenges as well. We're coming up on that very shortly. There's a daily creative challenge that you'll be able to see in the comments. So keep an eye out for that. And let's get into the main part about where we're kind of at right now. I feel like we've got so much on the timeline and we're like, okay, yeah, like cool, but like where do we go from here? Like now I just got a bunch of stuff. I kind of have a story, and you know, you can kind of get to a point where you're like, all right, now what? We really need to start diving into like making this come to life. So the next thing we want to do is we really want to add a flow and a vibe. And for time's sake, we've already picked a couple songs that would fit this video possibly. And like I mentioned, we are using YouTube audio library. It's the safest thing for this type of edit, particularly because we are putting it on YouTube. Just make sure you have the rights to your song, or that you have a royalty-free song that you're using. So we've chosen two for this one, just to have options between. And we're going to go ahead and add one of these to our timeline so we can start actually editing to an actual vibe, an actual flow. Because now that we have these clips and like, okay, well, like they kind of flow, they feel like they fit together, but do they really flow? Because now we got the whole other element that pulls this edit together, which would be sound. So we got about 15 minutes here that we'll kind of start editing to sound, and then we'll wrap up, answer any questions as well in the comments, and we're going to see how we can take this into tomorrow and really make it start to come to life with the captions and little updates even that Premiere Pro has recently had that saves us so much time. We'll show you captions tomorrow as well, because that's always really fun to add in, especially for behind the scenes stuff. So let's see what the song's all about. The biggest thing that we look at for songs is, you know, even if you don't want to use the whole song, as you can see here, this song is taking up this entire timeline, going well beyond where we want to go with this edit. But you can see that it has ups and downs in the song, you know, where it's got its bass and its treble and everything, and we can really kind of get a vibe for where we can cut from in and out of even this music. So let's take a look here on what we're working with here. I know that it seems like it gets up like right here, like we're like, all right, well, like it's chilling. And go ahead and we'll make a cut here, and we'll cut out like a part of the song and just see what we can work with from here. And go ahead and Patty will drag that over to the beginning and see if we can just find a vibe with this song here. All right, so we have a beat drop, and so we don't want to go that far. What we'll do is kind of like lower that volume for your sake as well to not blast you guys out. Go ahead and like lower that volume. Sorry about -24.
And it was at 24. Let's
Okay.
go down a little bit further.
Okay,
That
cool.
should be better.
So yeah, let's just see here what we're working with. And let's see. It ends there, which let's go. Okay, so basically, go ahead and pull that timeline.
All right, let's do this.
Yep,
Let's
we're
make our
losing a little
timeline
space.
bit bigger.
That was when you were showing that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't recommend not giving yourself a lot of timeline space like we were showing you before that little crash. So we kind of took less timeline space, but once you kind of have your clips, to be honest, you know, I like to work with a lot more timeline space like this, so you don't have that issue that we just ran into, where you're like kind of not having enough to see your audio, because your audio is going to be super important for you to hit these beats on point. So let's back it up a little bit. I like that kind of breakdown. I think that right here would be the cut. So go ahead and cut it right there. And let's go back. Let's go ahead and let's see. Pull that over here. Get rid of that. That's what I meant to do. So we have that build. So we know we could probably use this Laguna Fog video as it's going over this like mountain here. Pull it here. We can even pull all of this that we're working with. Let's get it all. Pull it back over to the beginning. Let's see here. And one thing to help you save yourself time, zoom in on it and see where that beat drops, and you can kind of pull it to where the beat, if you see right here, we're going to another clip, and you see how with this line, it's right where the beat drops and it's right where the clip starts. That's one easy way for you to kind of line up your music. I always try and make sure that I zoom in and take the extra time to hit the beats, because that's really where you're going to get that feel. So let's see what we're working with here. Boom. Okay, so that felt super slow. So we have this like upbeat song and we're like, oh, cool. But like, I'm just looking around at the ocean. Like, it's really not that cool because I'm not moving as fast as the song. So that's the other thing too, is like finding the song that's going to be hitting the same vibe as what your actual clips are hitting, and then editing the clips to fit that vibe, that motion. So for here, you know, what I would even do is I would speed up. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the clip. So, and even just to give you guys a better look from here, I'm going to make marks. So I know I want to speed up this part of the clip from like here to here. And we can show you how to do that, where you want to kind of like take clips and like, even though that I don't want to like cut that clip in half, because it might feel jumpy if I just like cut it in half and I'm like, oh, clip to clip. We can go ahead and just speed up moments that wouldn't feel necessarily as fast when sped up. So,
and what you're going to want to do that, there's two ways that you can really slow down a clip that I've found, is that you can, like we did before when we reversed the clip, you have speed duration, and you can choose that, but that slows down the clip in its entirety. And we only want to do right here and right here. So we're going to right click. We're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. We're going to go show clip keyframes. By default, the clip shows the opacity keyframes, but we want it to show the speed keyframes. And you're going to see that it changes a little bit. And that's why I've extended the timeline like this, because if it's down here, you're not going to be able to do it. You have to extend this out so you have free reign to work with this line. And I am going to hold Command, and you'll see that the cursor turns white. and I'm going to click where Amber left her marker. And this is a cool way that if I needed to do some work while she was editing, I know that these markers mean that she wants me to slow them down. And there we go. I'm going to hold and command and click again. Now we have 2 keyframes that are going to represent our speed. And if we zoom in, we can even add, I do this by default. I do a little ramp. And when it comes down time to do anything, you know, if she wants to speed this up or slow it down, it's only going to happen within these 2 keyframes.
So that's a really cool way, like he was saying, that we can work together and I can make notes down the line, because maybe I've just thrown together like, hey, Paddy, like this is exactly what I want the story to be. And like, you can kind of take and deal with like the little moments in between, make it fit, make it feel, make it flow better. So
one thing that's going to happen though, is when you start to slow this down, as I slow this down, the clip's going to get longer on the timeline. But if it is in between 2 clips, it's just going to stay that way. You're actually going to end up with less clips. So now we miss the jump. Now we don't have it anymore. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to bring this here. And again, you're going to have to extend like that. But now we have open timeline to work with, and then we can cut or change it as need be. But she's going to be speeding up the clip. So that's going to be a completely different thing. That's going to actually shorten the clip.
Yep. And I see some people in the comments saying, you know, the time remapping view is a game changer. And I think it really is, you know, to be able to work with that right here on the screen and, you know, be able to change what you're working with here. So so in this case, we're not slowing down, we're speeding up. So we're actually going to have, you know, probably more essentially to work with. So it kind of works in the opposite case. You got to keep that in mind with slowing down or speeding up. So let's go ahead and show what it would look like if we sped this up maybe to 150% or 200% on the in between of that clip.
200, double the speed. There we go, 200, and see how it's shortened up. So now we have this.
Yeah, and there's a lot of times too where you know, maybe this is if for instance this is me behind the GoPro, and some of the other clips that you were seeing in Mexico, it's one of our friends, Jeremy, he's behind the GoPro, and certain times, you know, you could have the GoPro person running faster or slower or taller or shorter, you know, the height difference, and being able to adjust your speed to kind of make it fit with whatever clip you're going in between is super important. And then also being able to adjust the frame, which we'll get to also in a few, and then we'll talk more on that actually next week, because we're kind of getting closer to wrap up time. You know, keep in mind too, if you're in the comments or if you're here joining us right now, or if you just joined us in the between, you know, Paddy and I have been working together for a few years on these types of travel videos and different ways that we work with our clients and for our own, you know, sponsors as professional skimboarders. And you can feel free to, you know, tell us about you or in your artist spotlight. You know, you can actually click in the spotlight tab. If you have any other questions, the moderators could also help you out in the chat throughout. But we'll be having an artist spotlight tomorrow and featuring an artist and explaining their work and everything like that. So yeah, it's been really fun kind of seeing everything in the chat here, and we'll kind of show you a couple more things here and get ready to kind of, you know, wrap up this section of getting this timeline kind of together and essentially ready for like the nitty gritty of, you know, breaking it down, putting it perfectly where it needs to be, taking this, you know, source of clips that we've decided to use and really adding onto them, adding those keyframes and those titles and everything like that. So from here, what we're working with essentially is kind of seeing what we got here and what he's done. If we play this back. And so for this particular clip, you can actually tell that Paddy was walking faster because we have a subject in it. So that speed ramping like doesn't really help, but we wanted to show you that process just in case we decided to use it. So we, this is, like I said, that process of where, we're working here with you. We're going through this edit as if we, we really did come back from Mexico and we're trying to work on this. I mean, we did come back from Mexico, but I mean, we're going through this right with you. So it's interesting to see like how we play around with this particular clip, how it doesn't really necessarily fit. It's not fast enough. So in this case, even though we sped it up, we may want to just cut it in general and go from there like that because of the way that it fits on the timeline. So.
And like she said, that's one of the benefits of making these travel videos. I mean, we showed you a couple videos in the beginning and we've been talking about it, but there's different shoots and there's different kind of vibes to these shoots and these videos. And, you can have the planned out shoot that's on paper that, okay, we need to get this shot, we need to get this shot, we need to get this shot. And, to me, that does feel a little bit more like work. I don't know how everyone else feels, but I mean, it's easier in its own sense. But at the same time, it's very like, okay, we need this, we need this, we need this. And, post processing and editing and doing all that stuff, it can be a little bit easier because everything is so leveled out and ironed out. But when we go to these places and, like she said, we're working with elements of the world, like ocean, the waves, weather, stuff like that. We're not shooting in a studio. And we sometimes have a kind of an idea of what we want to create, but it's never really, we're not really on a schedule. I mean, unless we're trying to, make sunset or sunrise, but that's kind of the thing that allows you to get creative and be creative. And I think that's essentially why they call it being a creative, is you take all of this footage, and even though it may not mix, I mean, we're working with footage from Mexico and Laguna Beach, and we're going through our process. We're never going to get it right off the bat. It's going to be that scenario where it's trial and error, trial and error. And through that trial and error, you're going to learn about your filming, you're going to learn about who you're working with, and you're going to learn about your video editing software too. That's the biggest hope. We say shoot to edit makes your editing easier. I'm behind the camera so much and I do edit quite a bit. It really does help that I know that even if my shot is maybe a shot, a stop underexposed, I can fix that in post or doing certain things and spending a little bit more time editing as opposed to being on site with other people and other people's time.
Yeah, for sure. And like he was mentioning, like everybody's process is different. Everything's going to be different depending on your project, your location, your cameras, your equipment, anything. So if you thanks Steve and everyone in the chat. Like if you have any questions, now would be a great time. We have about 10 minutes left, maybe a little less, and it'd be a great time for us to answer any questions for you. Feel free to throw them in the chat right now. We're just kind of wrapping up a few things here on kind of getting this timeline together and ready for you tomorrow for when we're actually kind of dialing in this edit, seeing what we can finish with and adding in some titles and some cool frames. So let's go ahead and play what we have for now just to see and then we can start getting it on, we'll start getting it closer on beat. I was basically trying to get that beat to hit a little better. And so I can feel that beat where it's like, all right, it's moving a little slow. So as you're just watching it, this is just natural. Like I just literally put stuff on, I watch it again, put it back, watch it again, watch it again. So what we want to do is we want to hit that beat. So I heard that beat hit like right here. So, and we missed that beat, but we also missed a beat back here too. So sometimes I get a little ahead of myself. I'm like, oh, well, I got to hit this beat. But if I didn't hit this beat ahead of it, then it's kind of like, okay, now you're doing double work because you're trying to hit this beat and then you miss the other one. So at this point, what I want to do is probably speed this entire clip up to 110%. So that way it doesn't look like it's going weird, and you only have between those markers sped up, we have the whole clip flowing sped up, and then we'll transition into that on like a beat hit. But for instance, if we wanted to hit this beat here, we got to remember to cut it right there. And then we can move everything over from there. And so that way, at least that other beat that you heard that we missed will be hit. And there's that beat.
That felt way better. Oh,
And so
wow,
that's
that
still
even
like,
worked.
yeah, I mean, and that needs to be slowed down, of course. Like this needs to be slowed down a lot. But as you can see here, that's some more details we can kind of get into tomorrow. I think it's still rendering a little bit, trying to do some work there, but that flows into that, and then it cuts right back into me kind of getting on the board here. And like Paddy was mentioning here, you could always pull up this onto a different track, give yourself some more to work with as well, and go from there.
One thing also that you guys I don't know if anybody else caught that when she pulled this up here. 9 times out of 10, I don't use the sound from our skim clips. Depending on what we're filming with, but because the sound is connected here, she isn't able to extend these clips out at all. And it's because the sound is being blocked by the other sound. What I would have to then go and then do if we were set on this, if I lock this, so nothing can be done to this. I can't select it. I can't do anything, but I'm going to select the audio and I'm going to delete the audio. But if I did that without this layer being locked or this video track being locked, if you delete there's no way to select it by itself. So if I were to delete the audio, I delete the clip as well. So if you're going to be doing that and you run into that issue where you don't want the audio, you can lock the video, select there, and now she would be able to extend it wherever she wanted.
Mm-hmm. And we definitely want to like use these clips here too to like kind of like add, a little bit more to it so you can see what we're working with there as well. So as you can see here, it kind of like cut up that audio. That happens too if you detach and you do things like that. So just keep in mind these little tricks that Paddy was mentioning that you can use to kind of put things into place there and make them fit and mend as proper. So I'm loving your comments. Thanks again, everyone. And yeah, this is like I said, working with what you have, finding a way for this beat to hit. And what we'll end up doing is we'll take like, especially with here, like where I'm saying words. So we'll go ahead and lower the audio on that and kind of like for a dub over, and you can fade the audio essentially. So when it's actually me, we will be using that audio from the skimboarding, like you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we will be using it, and this would be a case where I'm saying, okay, well, it's cold, like we're going to we're donezo here. That's where we would want to lower the music. And so what Paddy's doing right here, as you can see, is we're going ahead, we're lowering the music with those points and creating those fade in and fade out points. And it's great because you can do them right here on the timeline, and you'll be able to see how we're able to.
We already have it down so low. I have to be a little careful so I don't get rid of all the sound. But essentially what this is the volume bar. For the sake of the chat, we have it at like minus 38 decibels, which is a little bit lower than normal. But if we play this back, you should notice a little bit fade out when she starts talking. See, it's a little, and we have this muted.
Yep. So we'll have
see, guys, we have
unmute.
this muted here. So, but I can tell right off the bat that that's already too much volume that went down. So let's see if 45 works and play that back one more time and see how it sounds.
All right, my hands are frozen. I think we're done out here. And then it cuts right back into the music, and then we can go ahead and mute just those particular clips, not the entire track.
We could just pull it down like
that's
this.
what's most important too, is we want to make sure that we don't mute all of your clips that you're going to be doing in case you do want some of that raw audio. I really do enjoy using that raw audio as well. So yeah, it's been great editing with you all. Thank you so much for joining. It's been really fun. We're going to be here again tomorrow, same time at 12 Pacific Pacific time. And we're going to be editing the more nitty gritty details of this edit, diving into what we would do in certain scenarios as well. So like I said, my name is Amber Torrealba, and this is Paddy Mack. We're both professional skimboarders and filmmakers working with Adobe, and we've been working together for a while. And we'll continue to show you our workflow as a team on Adobe Premiere Pro tomorrow. And don't forget to try to submit for the artist highlights, and we'll be able to give you an artist spotlight for tomorrow. And stay tuned for the rest of the Adobe Live schedule later on.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks
it's been
again.
Great.
Have a good